Hey everyone, good evening. Yes, so give me a minute while I set up all the things. Cool. Quickly let me know if my screen is visible. Please write yes in the chat if the screen is perfectly visible to you. Where working with databases is written. Thank you, Vidya. Thank you. Thank you, Triyasha. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Shailesh. Yes. So yes, welcome to the session. So today we are going to go ahead and extend our discussion on databases. So in the last slide, in the last session, which was I think conducted on Friday, we talked about multiple things. We talked about what databases are, how they have importance in your technology stacks, and we also talked about how you can go ahead and structure your database or your structured database into the form of rows and columns out there. Okay, like take an analogy from a spreadsheet. Then we talk about how do you create schemas. We have created the schema for LinkedIn. I have also told you a tool through which you can go ahead and visualize this. And then we talked about SQL. So how SQL can go ahead and can help you out in order to uh, grab data from the database, insert into the database, update the data, and also delete the data. Okay, so we have focused ourselves onto four parts, which is like out of the four parts, insert, update, delete, and select. We were focusing on the select part because that is what you need to do as a product manager. So we have discussed about some important commands. The first command was select. How can you go ahead and select data? Like if your database contains anything, you should be able to go ahead and get that data. So select is a command that is used to do so. Now, when we talk about select, it is possible that you might not want the whole data. You would want only specific set of data. For example, people who have signed up tomorrow, people who are above this certain age, people who have signed up from here, or these kind of things. So you can always set up filters as you set in SQL. So that has been done by a where clause. Select any number of columns that you want from any table where you can put up the conditions there. Conditions should be column names less than, greater than, or equal to, or like will tell you that yes, if you want to match a particular you want to search for a particular keyword in that whole column, that is also possible. So we talk about this, then we talk about and or. You can go ahead and match multiple conditions, that these conditions should be true, either of these conditions should be true in order to give you the results. Then we talk about aggregate function, as in you can go ahead, whatever results that you have, you can do some calculation based on it. So for example, you want to see the number of rows, the data that you have that satisfies this particular condition. So count would be used over there. If you want to get a sum of a particular column, then also you can use sum and other kind of things that are given over there. Then we talked about group by, as in if you want to go ahead, you want to group your data set that you are looking at, then group by is very important out there. And rather than like looking at it from a definition viewpoint, I have shown you an example, as in if you want to know how many people have gone ahead and acquired from different kind of resources, it can tell you the same. Or if you want to know how many people have posted, how, like what is the distribution of number of posts that every person has, that could also be done from group by. Okay, then we talk about limit and order by. If you want to sort your order, sort your results that is showcased on the screen on the basis of some any column out there, you can do so with order by descending or ascending by using the name of that column that you want to sort by. And also limit, whenever you go ahead and do a query, you should make sure that you are putting some kind of limit so that only particular kind of data is being extracted and not whole of the table is available. Okay, then we talk about join. As in databases, we know that yes, in SQL we know that in order to go ahead and create something, in order to go ahead and get the full data, you have to join multiple tables out there, as we have gone ahead and understood in schema. So joins will help you go ahead and batch these tables together, and then you can go ahead and get data which is residing across multiple tables. Yes, and then we talk about, yes, one exercise together, and then in the end we talk about some practical advice. So this was the most important slide, that always make sure that if you are a new product manager, invest some time in understanding the data, how the schema is, because every company might have different kind of schema. Secondly, understand limits. Do not go ahead and search your database without any limits. It is going to like go ahead, can even bring your database down, and also will generate a large bill in terms of accessibility of data. Invest initial 2 weeks that I have told you. Do queries, and if find out if data matches everywhere, which is, go ahead. Companies might have some kind of reports, company might have some kind of databases, company might also use third-party analytics tools. Go ahead and do similar kind of query in order to find out if the data is similar across the places or not. Okay, and then indexes. If you find yourself querying, like putting a where clause on a particular column every time, go ahead and talk to your developer if they can put an index over here. If you put index to a column, that will make sure that the access to the data becomes faster. The query returns really faster. It saves you a lot of resources. Okay, so this is about it. We talk about the assignment, and today we are going to talk about SQL versus NoSQL. So yeah, people, tell me if you have any questions from the last session, or you can tell me, go ahead in the chat if you want to go ahead with today's session, which is SQL versus NoSQL and also APIs. Cool. So we will go ahead and talk about SQL versus NoSQL. Understand what is SQL? SQL is structured query language. Okay, here actually we should not call it SQL versus NoSQL. We should call it structured database versus unstructured databases. Okay, so structure or relational database is where you go ahead and put your data in the form of tables, in the form of columns, in the form of rows, and also these tables will combine in order to create a database. Okay, so the issue here is that whenever you want to go ahead and create a database, you should beforehand know what is the kind of data that you want to store. Because as you go ahead, if you want to change the data later, that becomes a bit difficult in SQL. Okay, now in order to go ahead and understand, in order to go ahead and solve for this, there are also other kind of database. Understand, you do not need to store your database always in the form of rows and columns. There are other mechanisms also available. I'm not going to go into the deep because that is beyond the scope that you need to know as a product manager, but I'll give you like some kind of terminology to help you out. Okay, so there are various kind of databases. One we have already studied in detail, which is a relational databases. The second kind of databases could be a key value store. Okay, it could be a graph storage database. It could be a document storage database, or it could be a column storage database. Okay, so a key value storage. So there are so many kinds of databases, not only one. Okay, relation is just one kind of that we have talked about. So in NoSQL type, okay, we have multiple kinds of databases. First kind could be, and also these four are also limited. There could be so many other that are possible beyond these as well. Okay, but these are the major ones. First is key value store. Okay, rather than thinking about these tables and columns and coming up with the schema beforehand, because schema creation is not very easy, you go ahead, you just create one table, and that table only contains two columns. Okay, this is the key, and this is the value. What is the key value? For example, you can give any number or any hash table, any number or any string over here. Okay, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, any number you can give over here, or any string you can give. Okay, and then alongside this, you can go ahead and store any kind of data, no matter what the data is. So if you want to access this data, you'll just go ahead and say, give me the value of key 2. Now, whatever data is there is available over there. Okay, so where we do not need structured data, we are going to use key value storage. Key value storage makes data faster because understand you only have to work with one kind of data set. You don't have to join. There are no so many columns out there. So these are very optimized. Second is, and since they are very optimized, they are used in cache. Okay, cache is a faster memory. In the later session, when we talk about system design and all, I'm going to tell you more about cache. But cache, understand that if you take any web application or any like the internet based application, the major block most of the time is actually the database. So you do not want to go ahead and touch the database or do queries on the database all the time. So what you do is, rather than going to the database, you go ahead and try to put some data, some frequently accessed data, some important data which is very frequently accessed into the cache. Okay, and non-relational databases have their use case when we go ahead and create a cache, because SQL is a major roadblock. You have to go ahead and connect to the database, and you have to also go ahead and connect different kind of tables altogether. Okay, so this is key value. The second kind is column storage. Okay, this is also an extension of key value column storage, but here what happens is that rather than storing your data in the form of rows and columns, it only uses columns. Okay, you will go ahead and just keep on storing the data in the columns. Okay, so there could be hundreds of columns, and since it is only one row, they have different kind of applications. That is beyond the syllabus because it is going to get very complicated for you if I tell you what are the like the use cases of a row based, a column based storage out there. Okay, then third is our graph database or graph storage. In graph, what we do is understand a system such as Facebook, okay, where we have a network of people. Okay, so we have maybe someone who is connected to some other person in the form of friends. Then they are also connected to someone else. Then they are also connected to each other. And then there is a fourth person who is connected to someone else. Okay, so this is known as a node, and this is known as an edge or a connection. Okay, so understand these are what? These are your entities, and these becomes attributes. So rather than putting in the form of a table and in the form of a rows and columns, we go ahead and create some kind of edges. So these are nothing. These are data structures. Okay, there would be like one column, one node, and a node would have certain kind of properties. Okay, so rather than putting them together in the form of columns, which are like limiting because you have to decide the number of columns beforehand, you go ahead and put it in the form of nodes and edges. It is easy to visualize, and whenever there are some kind of use cases such as a social network, this is the database to go ahead and use. The fourth kind of database, let me check which was it. Yes, it was document. This is the most popular one among these, which is document type storage. Okay, here what happens, we do not care about structure at all. Okay, we do not talk about tables or graph or anything. What you do is whatever the data is there, go ahead and add as a form of a document. Okay, so this, if we are talking about some person, okay, we'll go ahead and create a new document and put the information as person, and whatever is the information about the person, for example, this person is the user of Facebook. Okay, so we'll put okay, so for example, we have a data type entity known as user. So in user, what we'll do is simply a user can have a date of birth, a user can have friends, a user can have anything out there. Okay, we do not need to define anything. Just you make sure that this is stored in the form of a document. So any kind of information it can contain. You do not need to limit yourself by the number of columns or what is the type of each column out there. You can go ahead and store data. And when you go ahead and combine all of these together, user 2, user 3, everything is independent of each other. Okay, and then in the end, you go ahead and make this, but the set of documents is known as a collection. Okay, a very popular document storage type storage tool is actually MongoDB. I'm sure some of you might have heard it. Okay, so verdict, SQL versus NoSQL. In SQL, you need structure beforehand, which could be limiting for some people. Okay, while with NoSQL, you no need of a structure. Okay, and second thing is many options available. However, there is an issue. Okay, that with SQL you have a standard language, and everything is standard. People like the system knows how you have gone ahead and structured the data together. So you can use a language such as SQL in order to find your data out. Whatever you need, whatever database you need to build, it could be very easy. Okay, it is easy to retrieve data with this in the structured format. Why? Because you know how the data is stored. But here, because of its like looseness around data, the issue is that it might be very difficult for you to go ahead and access data. Okay, so access data could be problematic sometimes. Okay, and then since it is structured, as I've already told you, structured, inserting data becomes complicated. Okay, you have to make sure that it is in the correct format. Otherwise, the system is going to throw error. Okay, so entering data or putting data is a bit difficult, while here it is very easy. You just go ahead, collect the data and put it out there. It will make sure that it is storing in the right format out there because there is no format. Okay, to structure the thing, like to give you like a structured answer. Okay, so this slide should act as a cheat sheet for your SQL and NoSQL knowledge. So SQL mostly works on relational data model, while NoSQL is a document data model or other three types that I have told you. Document is the most famous out of these. Then the pros are it is universal, compatible with most of the technology, because understand SQL is older and also many people know how to go ahead and create things in SQL. NoSQL is a recent thing, recent as in not very recent, but 5-10 years ago. Okay, it is very good with structured data. If there is a thing where like a structure of data is very important, such as banking application, where you cannot have any kind of mistakes, you already know that yes, this is how the data should be stored, then it is very good to use structured data. Otherwise, if you go ahead, you want to like build an agile organization where you do not know what the needs are, you do not know how like how the structure of the data should be, then maybe you can go ahead and with NoSQL. So schema design is not a roadblock. In SQL, once you until you define the schema, you cannot go ahead. But with the schema design not being a roadblock, these are like faster. So most of the time, startups, you are going to see that they are going to use the NoSQL model. Similarly, it is built for cloud and horizontal scaling. I'm going to come in a bit on what is horizontal and what is vertical scaling. Then what are the cons of these languages? For SQL, you have to definitely invest in the schema design. And then it is difficult to scale horizontally. I'm going to come in a bit what horizontal and what vertical scaling is. Then technology is still maturing. So understand at this point of time, right now when we are sitting, okay, if someone tells you that what is the use case that could be done in NoSQL, it could not be done in SQL. So there is no such use case because both of the technologies have evolved so much that you can do almost all of the things in everything. Meanwhile, I'm going to talk while I'm going to talk about vertical and horizontal scaling. Although by practice, by fundamentals, vertical scaling is not possible with is not so much good with NoSQL, while horizontal scaling is not possible with SQL. Still, these days, people have find engineers have gone ahead, they have find solutions in order to use SQL in almost all of the use cases and also use NoSQL in almost all of the use cases. Even the burden of even the blocker of going ahead and finding a schema in SQL, that is also being resolved, but that would be very advanced for you. And then the last part is you need extra work for interconnected data. So for example, in SQL, all the data is interconnected. Okay, so there is one table out there, there is one table, a similar table in the database. You can go ahead and connect them very simply with the help of joins. But this is not so possible in NoSQL databases because they are made to horizontally scale. Okay, so now tell me everyone, does any one of you has an idea of what an horizontal and what an vertical scaling is? A quick yes or no in the chat would help. If you have an idea about vertical or horizontal scale. Yes, Nikhil, can you go ahead and tell me any idea about, give an idea about horizontal and vertical scale?
I think in the horizontal scaling, you will add extra database or extra computing. So system would be similar, like you will replicate the whole system and then, scale horizontally. Whereas in the vertical scaling, you will add extra resources to the same machine.
Yes,
which is
exactly.
kind of, at some larger sizes, it becomes practically impossible to scale vertically.
So
Yes.
basically, if you want, suppose at a particular point of time, your number of user is increasing, right? So you need to horizontally increase your database. Is that so, Ankit?
Yes, yes, I'll tell you how it works. Okay. So yes, thank you both of you. Thank you, Hemant. Thank you, Nikhil. So I'll tell you how it works. Okay. So understand, if there is only one user which income, so this is how the yeah, so this is how the applications work are working or they are created. Okay. So you are a new startup, you have came up with the idea that I'm going to go ahead and create a social network. Okay. I'm going to create a social network. Initially, you have around 10 people coming to your system. Okay, so what you have is, in order to get these 10 people, what you do, you have created a website where people come, they register, and all of these queries, okay, they go to your backend. What is backend? Backend is a server. Okay, so what is a server? Server is nothing, it's but a computer. Okay, so what does a server contain? What are the major parts of any computer? The first part is the memory of the server. Memory is of two parts. Okay, one is the primary memory, second is the secondary memory. Okay, primary memory is actually RAM. Okay, which is whenever a computer is doing processing, RAM is used. While if they want to go ahead and store some data for later usage, that would be this, which is also known as our hard disk memory or a STD memory, solid state drive memory. Okay, so when we buy a computer, the RAM is in the range of maybe 4, 8, 16, 32 gigabytes, while the secondary memory is going to be maybe 512 GB or 1 TB or anything out there. Okay, so that is the secondary and the primary memory. Primary memory, which is RAM, which is used in order to make sure that whenever any program is running, whenever any service is running, whenever any software is running, that is the memory that is going to contain the data for that period of time. So it has to be very faster because running program will need a lot of data to be accessed at that period of time, and it needs to access that data very fastly because it is running in the real time. Okay, so this is it. First thing you need is the memory, two types of memory. Second thing you need is the CPU. Okay, CPU is, you should be able to go ahead and make calculations. Okay, so if people are going ahead, they are creating account and now we are storing the things to the database, then your computer will need the CPU in order to understand what is happening, in order to do what you want them to do. Okay, so this is the CPU, and CPU is based on cores. Okay, 1 core, 2 core, 5 core, what is the gigahertz value, how quick the CPU is, it depends upon the CPU. Okay, now initially you were having 10 people, everything was on one computer, everyone was happy. But now one issue occurred. Okay, that now you have gone ahead and your product became very popular. Okay, and now you have 1 million people. Okay, now you will hit the roadblock. This computer would not be enough. Okay, this computer cannot go ahead and serve your data needs, because now if one person is going ahead and they are storing like 10 photos, then maybe 1 million people, they also started doing this kind of thing, then you will need a lot of memory. Maybe let us say this is KB, then you will need 10 million KBs. Okay, so your data is not enough now. You need more data, otherwise your system is going to fail. Similarly, here people were creating, maybe one account was created in every 5 minutes. Okay, because in the initial 50 minutes you have 10 people. Now your system has scaled. Now maybe in 1 minute you have to create maybe 200 accounts, or not even accounts. These people are going ahead and they are chatting with each other. So billions of millions of messages are generated almost every month or maybe every day for you. Okay, so now your process will hit a scale. I will hit a roadblock that you have to increase the memory and you also have to increase the CPU. Okay, so what we'll do? Okay, so generally what we do is, like as a normal person, what we do is we go ahead, for example, we are kids and we are playing a game. Okay, and we see that no, the game, whatever we are playing, is lagging. Whenever we go ahead and so one analogy of this system hitting a roadblock is actually your game lagging. your game is lagging because it is not able to get the resources, it is not able to get the kind of memory that it needs. Okay, and the CPU is also not able to effectively serve this game. Okay, so what will happen is, what we'll do initially, you will say that initially I had 4 GB RAM. Now I will go ahead and buy a new piece of RAM which is also 4 GB and put it in my computer. Okay, now your expectations are also increased. You have gone ahead and put maybe a new game altogether. So you will insert 4 GB of more RAM. But after a certain period of time, you are going to run out of limit. That yes, I have gone ahead and stored 32 bits of memory, the 32 gigabits of memory, but now I cannot go ahead and insert more. That is the limit that I can hit. For gaming, it is good. Games are created for this kind of things out there. But for businesses, you have to be ready, you should be ready, and you should be workable for as many number of users as possible. Okay, so there scaling comes. What I have told you just now, which is about your system was there and you were actually upgrading your system. So this is your system. And now if it is hitting a roadblock, what you do is you add RAM. Okay, you also add some processing power if it is possible. Sometimes it is possible, sometimes it is not possible. Okay, so by adding RAM, you have gone from 4 to 8 to 12 to 16 and all of these kind of figures. Okay, and you have also gone ahead and increased the number of cores. You have gone to maybe octa-core or something out there. Okay, now because of the limit of how much a single machine can take, now you are limited. Okay, so this is equal to if you have created a home. Okay, now the family members in your like in your home increases. So what you will do is you will go ahead on the same building, on the same home, you will go ahead and create a building at the top. You'll go ahead and create one floor. Maybe other members have increased. Now some other relatives have came. So you will go ahead and do so. So vertical scaling is this what we are talking about. Okay, this is vertical scaling. Okay, in vertical scaling, what happens is that we try to optimize, we try to upgrade the quality or the resources of the same machine or the same building. Okay, while with horizontal scale, what we do is rather than going ahead and like upgrading this building, we will go ahead and create more of such buildings. Okay, in the computer world, you can say that rather than going ahead and adding the value to my computer, I will add more computers. Okay, so initially I was having 4 GB one computer. Now I will have maybe 3 computers which will have 4 GB each. Okay, now it is infinitely possible for you to go ahead and scale, because understand, physics will not allow expansion of this building after a particular period of time. Similarly, technology would not allow further scaling of a system beyond a particular limit. Okay, that is why we go ahead and go with horizontal scaling, which is about adding more number of computers. So in our case, initially what was happening, 10 users were coming. Okay, user 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, they were coming to our platform, our website, and now our website backend was able to fulfill them. But now what will happen? Many millions of people will come to our website, and then our website would be having multiple servers at the backend, and they will be sync with each other. How they sync, we are going to understand in the system design part. Okay, they are going to go ahead and sync with each other, and then they are going to make sure that yes, they are working at their capability and making sure that the system itself is very popular to go, is very powerful to go ahead and serve any kind of requests. Okay, so this is known as horizontal scaling. When you go ahead and increase the number of computers, and vertical scaling is you try to increase the limit or the capability of the same machine. A quick yes or no in the chat, everyone, if you are able to understand what is horizontal and what is vertical scaling, because in the coming sessions, horizontal scaling is going to be a major point of discussion. Yeah, horizontal scaling is also known as distributed scaling. Okay, you go ahead and distributed systems are built on the concept of horizontal scaling, as in things are distributed. And cloud is also something that is based on the fundamentals of horizontal scaling. Cool. So now talking about SQL, NoSQL. Okay, so right now, if I talk about today's day and age, okay, right, we are sitting in 2023 right now. Okay, so it is, yes, it is possible to scale SQL vertically as well. Like by the definition of it, SQL is vertically scalable, and then NoSQL is horizontally scalable. Okay, but there are enough ways we are going to consider in system design, like sharding and all, through which it could also be horizontally scaled. Okay, but to tell you how it is, like by the principle, why is it not horizontally scalable? SQL. Let me tell you that in SQL you see that there are tables, right? And these tables are connected with each other. Okay, so now if these tables are actually on different systems, so there is one system, there is two system, there is three system, and then there is a website. Okay, so this is the website where millions of people are coming. So they have, what they have gone ahead is they have break the storage into three parts, 1, 2, and 3. Now what might happen is that there is one table that is contained in here, there is one other table that is contained in here. So if this computer is going ahead and accessing the resource, they might not be able to collect this table. Now this table is also important because the joins will not work. Okay, that is why we say that since SQL needs all the data to be at one place to make the joins, it is not good to go ahead and consider SQL for horizontal scaling. In the meanwhile, in the coming sessions, I'm going to tell you how SQL people have gone ahead and innovated on that as well by a concept known as sharding. Okay, and now here you consider, since they do not have any, like these people, they do not have any structure. Everything that they have, they are going to form in a document. Okay, so document contains everything, and one document, the size of the document, it is only given, like the only requirement is that the size of the document should not be increased, should not be greater, the size of one document should not be greater than what is the limit of one thing out there, like one computer out there. Okay, and those are like very similar, very smaller. So what here will happen is that there is document Y, there is document Z, there is document X. Okay, so it will understand where the document is, and similarly it will go to that particular thing only. They do not need to connect with other server because one document already contains everything. There is no structure in the document. Okay, so this is SQL and NoSQL. Now everyone, tell me on a scale of 1 to 5 if you are able to understand this. It might be a position, you might be feeling from a like you might be feeling like a lot of information is thrown to you, but just bear with it. If you go ahead and I'll share few resources, and also if you repeat the session again, I'm sure you'll be able to understand this. If you are 4 or 5, that is good, because this is not like a simple concept to understand. Even the developer, when they decide how to use, whether to use SQL, NoSQL, it is difficult for them. So practically what is going to happen is that whatever your developer has learned, they are going to support that. What I have seen practically is that people are coming from a NoSQL background because they are new developers. They are going to make sure that they are putting a case of NoSQL together very strongly. Okay, and that is good as well. Like you should go ahead and consider the technology, since you are a product manager, not like you do not have much say in choosing the technology. Let your developers choose it, whatever they are familiar with. Okay, and these days, almost every use case, if you want to build an analytics tool where data pushing is very important, or if you want to build like a structured network such as a social network where pulling of data is very important. Okay, all of these, both of these use cases which are entirely apart could be made in SQL as well, in NoSQL as well. It depends on how your engineers are looking at problems out there.
So Ankit,
Yes, Hemant.
the government websites like IRCTC, they are using this document NoSQL, right?
No, they can use both of the. Yeah. So understand. I can create like the engineer can go ahead and they can create the same website in SQL as well. Same is NoSQL. Sometimes some is good, sometimes some is bad, but it is not that one can replace the other.
Okay.
Yeah, so even the RCTC website, any website that you give, a good developer will go ahead and it will create the schema for it. That is possible. So, but you have to consider that in order to make SQL horizontally scalable, that is the challenge. Okay, so these days most people generally prefer NoSQL because they do not have to go ahead and do some kind of duct taping or solve unnecessary problems in order to go to this, in order to like make SQL into a horizontally scalable language. Yes, yes, combination happens all the time. Okay, so if you'll see like most of the bigger websites out there, so if you look at RSCTC, their booking engine might be SQL because that is important for like they need to make sure that data is very consistent. Okay, so that would be an SQL. While the analytics, like what people are pressing where, what is coming in the click, their advertisement models, or how they are showing the advertisements, all of that could be a NoSQL as well. So yes, all of the time we see that one company or one product uses different kind of databases together. Yeah, Dhairya, please go ahead.
So whenever you see on Twitch or some streaming platform, so let's say a game streaming platform, let's say Counter-Strike competition is happening. So there is some lag, right? 40 ms or 10 ms at best. So this happens on which type of server or combination?
Yes, so I'll tell you this is known as latency. Okay, that the difference between you making a request and you getting a response, and that could be because of multiple reasons. Most of the time it is not because of the like if you're talking about gaming companies, okay, these are very strong, they have made their servers very good. Most of the time they are using NoSQL these days because the data is very unstructured. Okay, but understand that this lag mostly is because of your own internet connection. It is not because of that, because understand 10 milliseconds is almost nothing. So and this is a very common question that can come in an interview, that go ahead and if you have to you are accessing a website, maybe YouTube, and it is loading very slowly. What are the things as a product manager that you look at? Then you will create a list that yes, maybe my internet is slow, that is the first thing. Maybe the images are not optimized, maybe the video is not optimized, maybe the data that I'm accessing from the server, it is not properly structured, or maybe my server is down. So you have to structure, like you have to go breadth first. You have to understand all the reasons, like list all the reasons, and then you have to double down on one of the reasons out there, depending on the context.
Okay, so
Yeah, Shivam.
if,
Yeah, please go ahead.
so if I say, let's say YouTube has 10 servers and they have 10 million users, 1 million on each server. So let's say server 2 is down. So it will affect a particular set of customers or everyone?
No, it will go ahead. So these are very intelligent enough. Okay. So if one server is down, they are going to go ahead and distribute its loads among another. If it is not happening, then they will go ahead and create a new server on the fly.
Yeah, I think that is what we call auto scaling.
Yes,
Sir,
yes, correct.
Ankit,
In horizontal
isn't-
scaling, we have auto scaling as well.
okay, Ankit, isn't it like this orchestration where
Correct. In DevOps, there is all these concept of orchestration, whether you should go ahead and pull up whether. So for example, we are talking about an example of going ahead and create, like if you are having relatives in your room, so you should go ahead and increase the number of rooms in the building. Okay, but that is not good because relatives are only for a few period of time. Okay, so you will go ahead and do this orchestration automatically so that people are coming and you are getting some other hotels in rent so that people are able to stay over there. You don't have to purchase and build anything out there. So that is known as auto scaling, or like one way to do horizontal scaling.
So Ankit, what my question was, is it the same concept of latency which Dream 11 also uses during their live games?
That I'm
Maintaining
not
the
sure that.
ranks.
Yes, so I'll tell you what latency is. Latency is very simple. It's a lag between you making a request and you getting a response. There could be multiple ways to solve for this latency. If the file size is bigger, understand most of the time, the block is going to be the file because the file is very heavy. So you optimize the file. Second is you go ahead and you understand maybe the video that is loading, that is not properly encoded. So you do that. Or you also understand that, yes, if it is a mobile, why you are going ahead and giving them a HD resolution. So you can reduce that. And maybe you can also do optimizations at the backend. So latency is a problem. Like latency is a concept which is very simple, that what is the difference between me making the request and the response coming to me. And there could be multiple solutions to solve for this latency problem.
Okay. But so my question was how Dream 11 would be maintaining all those ranks during live games.
Yeah, I'll tell you like so auto scaling does not happen over there. I'm going to give you a video that is going to do all of these things in detail, where they have actually mentioned the example of Dream 11. I think, and that is only from like people who are running Dream 11. That's a very popular video across YouTube.
Okay. Okay, I'll have a look at it. Sure.
Cool. So we are done now, and now second we will consider. So I'll share this video with everyone. That is like in a very common language, so you guys will be able to at least make some sense out of it. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and talk about another concept. Okay, which is API. So we have talked about front end, we have talked about back end, we have talked about the database as well. Okay, but still your own system is limited. Okay, your own system is limited in terms of functionality, and also how do you go ahead? How does your backend will talk to the front end? How your website will talk to your backend or your database? For all of this, we need something. We need a set of rules out there. Okay, which is known as an API. So if you have used Uber, then you will see that on Uber, there is a Google map loading. Similarly, there is an API through which, like if you are in India, you might be using the Paytm out there, right? So Paytm API is also linked. So what is API? API is nothing, but APIs is a way through which two tech systems can interact with each other. In this particular diagram, in this particular use case of Uber, this is Uber system, while this is Paytm system. Like this is Google system, while this is Paytm system, and both of these are interacting with the Uber system. Okay, in order to give such customer some kind of value, some kind of use case. Okay, so it is possible only because of API, which is known as application programming interface. So Uber has gone ahead. It is using the API of Paytm. It is using the API of Google in order to talk to these systems. These two are different systems. Google is one system, technical system. Uber is another system. How they talk with each other, what is the common language, what the data they pass with each other, that is possible because of a concept known as API. When two systems talk together, the system through which they talk is known as an API, application programming interface. What is application? Application is the particular system. Programming is how do you give instructions, and interface is what should be the exact method of instruction, what should be the exact the interface of the instructions. Second example is from CRED. Whenever you go ahead and use any kind of a system in India where it is fetching your credit score, then you will see that these people, apps such as Policy Bazaar, or the Money, Paisa Bazaar, or maybe CRED as well, you are going to see that in order to fetch your details, your credit score, they have to talk to some third party, which is known as CRED, CRIF, Experian, or this particular third service known as Civil, through which they will go ahead and get your data. So your data is not with these people. Your data is actually with these third party rating agencies out there, which maintain all of the loans that you have taken. They build a credit score for you. Okay, this data is given to them by the banks through some kind of APIs. Okay, and when you go ahead and try to sign up on these kind of devices in order to take your credit score and check your credibility, they are going to take help of these kind of services. This is also an example of API. And the third is when you go ahead and look at any kind of booking website, which is giving you flights or which is giving you cars or anything out there, they have to interact with the third party. So Air India, Air Asia, or maybe Tata Airlines would be having some kind of system for themselves, as in where they are storing how much is the space between how much is the seats left between my particular kind of planes out there. They will make this available to all of these booking.coms or Paytms or the Exigos of my world. And then they will go ahead and tell them that, yes, this seat is available. And in the real time, it will keep on updating. So in this system, three systems are interacting with each other. Here, two systems are interacting with each other. And here, multiple systems are interacting with each other. You see that Air Asia might be having their own API. This particular is having their own API. And also other might also be having their own APIs. Okay, so what is API? APIs are a way for tech systems to communicate with each other. Any other example of APIs that you guys can give? Any other example of APIs that you guys can give?
Gmail.
How?
Zerodha.
Google Maps.
You can sign in to any website using your Gmail account.
SSO.
That's a good example. Yes, that is also SSO is a very good example of API. Any other example?
Zerodha.
Yes. So at Zerodha also, like National Stock Exchange, they give their feed to Zerodha. And also then when you are transacting on Zerodha, you have to use a payment gateway. A payment gateway is actually an example of API-based business. Any other example?
All every app which uses a payment system.
Yes, payment gateway is that, yes. PhonePe is also. PhonePe has built themselves on the UPI. UPI is actually a API.
E-commerce sites wherein the listing is there, purchase is there, everything. I mean, in all the cases, APIs are needed. Right?
Yes, yes, yes. So understand now here right now, whatever examples that you guys have given, that is on two different systems interacting with each other. Okay, APIs are also used in order to interact among internal systems. Okay, so for example, you have a backend. How does the backend interact with the front end? How does the front end interact with the backend? That also can be done with the API. You set a major kind of rules altogether. Okay, your front end developer is going to work on the front end, and whenever he needs data, he is going to call an API with the backend. That is also great because why? Because these two are also some kind of systems altogether. Okay, so APIs have multiple use cases. Okay, so APIs have multiple use cases. First is complete the functionality of the product. A very good example is Cred, Booking, Uber, what I have given you, that in order for your users to use your product to its potential, such as what is Uber without a Google map? What is Uber without a location, like any kind of map service, right? So first use case of API is it could be used to complete the functionality of the product. In e-commerce, if people cannot pay, then how are they going to go ahead and how you are going to make money, how they are going to exchange value? So payment gateways act as a functionality for the product. That is why you need an API. Second is communicate with internal systems. So rather than going ahead and only considering APIs for interacting between two disconnected systems together, you can also make sure that you are using APIs, because this is a good rule to follow when two systems, your internal systems, are interacting with each other. Okay, so you can understand SQL is also an API. Can anyone tell me why SQL is an API?
Because it helps us to depict the data in the front end.
Yes, correct. So SQL, what it does is SQL is actually, we have in the initial example we have talked about that there is like a backend or a logic layer, and also there is a database layer. SQL helps this logic layer in order to get data or insert data into the database. So SQL is actually like a kind of functionality. You can not like call it really an API, but that is an important like it could be like an analogy to an API, that it helps you connect with this and give the instruction to and get instructions from that particular kind of second system, which is databases. Okay, so communicate with internal system is also possible, external system is also possible. And the third use case, which is you can offer your own business as an API. Okay, so you understand all of the examples that we have taken about payment gateways. Okay, about Google Maps, about stock exchange, National Stock Exchange. These are the businesses which their actual money that they are making is by providing themselves as an API. UPI is an example of like API as a business. This Visa is an example of API as a business. It helps you go ahead and connect with so many business and banks out there, your card. Okay, so there are multiple billion-dollar businesses which are actually going ahead and offering their API as a service. Any other example that you guys can give about using API as a business, where you have seen that API has become a business over there?
Shopify.
Shopify, yes, they have an API, but that is not their main business out there. They have given a perfect solution. Razorpay, yes, correct. So Razorpay, although Razorpay also has the front end and everything, but their most major use case is that sites can automate their payments through which they are going ahead and now if you are going ahead and starting something, okay, you would not want to go ahead and only limit yourself to accepting money from one bank. Okay, and now you do not have power to go ahead and interact with every other bank in order to get their acceptance. So what you'll do is you'll go to Razorpay, and Razorpay will handle collecting payment and putting into your bank account through a very automated way, and going ahead and integrating all of the possible solutions out there.
All these travel platforms like that of Amadeus, Galileo, Mystify, they're also
These are providing APIs for the travels.
yeah,
Yes,
because
that would
all
be
the
that would be.
data which you see in just like the first example, all these rates, they come from these APIs only.
Okay.
And one
Yeah, so that is an
classic example also, Ankit, this IRCT is also offering the APIs. So like
Yes,
you
yes,
can
yes.
book from Paytm, any other
Correct,
platform.
correct. That's correct. That's correct. So now you can also go ahead and book an API, and then you will also go ahead and yeah, you can also go ahead and book an IRCTC ticket from Paytm. So that is also a good example. That friend who helps you understand the complex context before exam is also an API. So yes, yes, correct. Because you do not have to go through all that pain of going ahead and doing all of these things. You do not have to, like, Razorpay helps you from the pain of going ahead and talking with all of the all of the banks out there and adding all of these payment mechanisms. Similarly, your friend, which Anurag has given an example of, that friend who helps you understand complex concepts before exam is also an API. You tell them exam mein kya aayega, and that's it. And they are going to tell you these 5 things. You have to learn them and then you have to go. That also helps you save a lot of time.
Can Twitter bot be an API?
Can which one?
Twitter bot?
Twitter, yes, yes. Twitter bot is actually working, is an API. Yes, 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 correct. It is Twitter has an API on the basis of which these bots are being created. So I would say bot is actually an interface to this API.
Okay.
Our APIs and stacks are the same. No, stack. So understand, stack has different meanings. Okay, stack is just you are collecting so many things together. So technology stack is what are all technology a company is using. Okay, stack in like in computer science, stack has a different meaning. So stack will not use as a term, but yes, API is a different thing that I have told you. So stack, like, do not confuse between stacks. It is like a generic term given to things which are collected together, and also it's a very different concept in computer science as well, in order to store the memory. Cool, cool, cool. So yeah, so I'll give you an analogy of an API, which is like very common. Okay, and I'm sure you might have, if you have searched for internet on API on the internet, you might have come across this. Okay, you go to a restaurant, okay, and you call the waiter. Waiter gives you a menu. That go ahead, you go ahead and look at the menu. Okay, you call the waiter, you tell them the name of the dish. You also give them some more instruction than how spicy it should be, how less spicy it should be. And then you go ahead and also tell them the quantity. You give them what? You give them the dish, you give them the instructions, and you also give them the quantity as a part of the description. Okay. Then this person will go, they will take your order and they will go to the chef. And then in the kitchen, they are going to tell that this person wants this particular kind of thing. Okay. And then they will go ahead, take the meal from the chef when it is created from the kitchen, and then they'll serve it to you. So you are actually the front end where you are going ahead and generating all of this data, giving the instructions out there. You are one system. The chef is the end system, while the API in between is actually your person who is going ahead and taking your knowledge to there and taking their input to here. You are generating a request and then they are giving you a response. It might be possible that you ask something that is not possible. API would not know it. Okay, then they will go ahead and ask the chef, and chef will say, no, it is not possible. Maybe if you have talked about a weird dish at that point of time. Okay, so this is like a very common analogy that people give. And also one more thing that I want you guys to tell you, that in the interviews, people are going to ask you not directly about this concept, that what an API is or what a database structure is. Okay, they are going to ask you, how would you go, and this is the communication problem rather than a technology problem, that they are going to ask you, how would you explain an API to a 5-year-old? Or how would you explain an API or a relational database model to your grandmother? Okay, these kind of questions are very common. Okay, there is one thinking framework that you can use. If they are asking you directly, then always use the definition or the first principles in order to come up with a solution. If they are asking you to explain it to someone, which is a 5-year-old or a 60-year-old, which might not have that kind of context, then always try to use analogy that is very much familiar to them. So restaurant is something that your grandmother would be maybe knowing of, or maybe restaurant is something that your kid might also be knowing. Okay, so this is like one key that you should remember when these kind of questions are being asked to you.
Ankit, in this
Yes,
particular case, can we use assumption? For example, if they are saying that your 5-year-old, now
Mhm.
I can assume that my 5-year-old kid goes with me restaurant every week, so he knows about the restaurant culture, right? Kind of this assumption.
Yes, yes. So you have to take basic assumptions. Okay, you cannot imagine that every 5-year-old kid is going to a 5-star restaurant. You can say that yes, I believe so. You have to list down your assumption in a very like neat way or a very obvious way, that yes, I understand that if it's a 5-year-old kid, they might be knowing at least about what a restaurant is. Okay,
Correct.
so then I'll go ahead and tell them about the same. Okay, maybe if it is about kid, if you can take examples from books, candy, or these kind of things, or maybe some example from their school, because one thing is know that if they are 5-year-old, at least they are in school right now, like in the early level of their school. So you can take these kind of understanding. Okay, so understand, empathy is more important skill than technology for product managers. So if you can empathize, if you can understand that, yes, if they are talking about 5-year-old, this is what happens in their life. This is what important for them. Okay. Yes, school teacher is an API. Yes, school teacher is an API. Or better example is maybe your mother is an API. When you go ahead and get money from somewhere, you give it to your mother. She puts it in your bank, or she puts it in your piggy bank out there. Okay, and then it is stored. And when you ask, you go ahead and ask your mother that please give me money, and she gives you the money. So that is an API. The request is the API is your mother, and the request that you make to her is actually giving the money or getting the money. So there could be so many things that you can go ahead and explain. So analogy is an important word. Always use analogy and all. Correct. Yeah. Stitching clothes could be like a very good example that yes, you do not bother about stitch. I think this is a very, very interesting and a very, very good example that you do not bother about going ahead and stitching the cloth by yourself. Okay. You just want to go ahead and wear something good. So you go ahead and you ask your nanny. She is going to make sure, you are just going to give her instructions, and then she is going to make sure that she is collecting everything, every data, and giving you a proper response in the form of a sweater or something out there. Very, very good example, Rajendra.
So Ankit, so in the previous example, for example, if you ask for money from your mother and your mother scold, so what kind of error is this? Is this 505 or 404?
That depends. That depends in the way that you are asking. If she does not have money, then it is 500 error. So I'll give you an example, but that's a good example to carry on next. Okay. But like remember me about this example when we talk about the errors.
Sure.
This is a good one. This is going to be a good one. Yes. Cool. So I have talked about this. Now, let us talk about some pros and cons to APIs. Okay. So before I could show you the slide, what do you think? Like if I am a company which is using API of other people. Okay. So now tell me in the chat, what do you think are going to be the pros and cons of this approach? Me having to use other people's API in order to give the functionality to the user. Less effort is a pro, right? Dependency is a con. Cost is a con. Other free marketing for them. Yes, it could be. Better visual functionality, no hassle of maintaining. Yes, correct. So yes, you guys are correct. Okay. So APIs have pros and cons. The pros are very obvious, as as all of you have understood, that it reduces the time to ship. Okay, so pros are you go ahead and you reduce the time to ship, as in you do not have to create. For example, if today Uber wants to go ahead and replace Google, they want to create so for example, if Uber started today and they try to go ahead and create the system such as Google Maps, it is going to be almost impossible for them because this is not what they are good in doing. Okay, so it reduces the time to ship. It gives you added functionality without like going ahead and creating it by yourself. And third is development is manageable. Okay, so since you don't have to create yourself, you do not have to like think about so many things, and you give the thing to the expert. So Google team knows how to goes ahead and manage the maps out there. Okay, similarly, Stripe will go ahead and they will make sure that they are interacting with all the, or Razorpay will make sure that they are going ahead and interacting with all of the services out there, all of the banks out there. Okay, and they are also maintaining like if something is not working, some payment gateway is not working, some bank is not working, we should follow back on the next one. Similarly, there are cons as well. Okay, which you guys have also figured out, which is added cost. Now, if you are using this, Google like Google Maps is actually costing, I think, so much to let us go ahead and search cost of Google Maps to Uber. Yeah, so I think they have paid 58 million in 2016 to 2018, and the cost after that has actually grown. I think Apple has revisited their payments, and I think it has grown right now 7x to 18x. So that is there. And the second part is, and also we have to pay like a tax to Razorpay as well, as in they go ahead and take the transaction fees. And second is dependency. This is a major thing. Okay, that generally when people go ahead and create any kind of API based startup or API based company, they have to get a lot of trust. Okay, because understand, others people business is actually depending on your own business. Okay, so you cannot go ahead and take a risk over there. So dependency is very important. That is why if you are creating a company as an API, that the main offering of the company is API, you have to make sure that you have enough support or you have enough trust. Otherwise, people are not going to trust you and they are not going to depend on you, because dependency becomes a major hit over there. Okay, now I'll give you a brief about the terminology related to an API. Okay, and then we are going to conduct the session from tomorrow. Yes, so tomorrow we have a session. We have decided that these sessions are going to happen on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But on Friday we have something else. So this session is now going to happen today. I'm going to finish the session in a while. Tomorrow we are going to have the session at the same time, and then on Wednesday we are going to have a session to mostly complete majority of the program. Okay, so tomorrow is also going to be a session, and there will be no session on Friday. Okay, so now talking about terminology to the API. So now, if you want to use an API that someone other has provided you, you have to be aware of these particular terminologies. One particular terminology is endpoint, second is request, and third is response. We will touch upon this. The first thing is endpoint. So what is an endpoint? Endpoint is mostly about what do you want. Okay, what part of service do you want to access? Okay, so consider this as we talk about Razorpay. Okay, when we go ahead and integrate Razorpay in our system, it is going to give you multiple functionalities. You can create a payment link through the Razorpay API. You go ahead and tell Razorpay that for this amount, create a link. Then it will go ahead and create a link. Similarly, create a payment link. Second could be you go ahead and accept payment. Okay, it will be generated on Razorpay's end. Now you should be able to go ahead and get the details of the card. So card of the person is mentioned, their CVV is mentioned, and then you should go ahead and take the payment from the person. Okay, or third could be go ahead and create invoice. Okay, that for this customer, go ahead and create an invoice and send it to them. Okay, so there are three use cases. One is to create a payment link so that people can go ahead and make the payment. Second is actual payment. You have to go ahead and accept the payment. The user will send you the card details, and then you have to make sure that the payment is happening through various kind of mechanisms. And third is create invoice. In the end, when everything has happened, go ahead and send them an invoice. Okay, so now how would API, how would Razorpay know that this particular person who is there, who is my user out there, any system who is accessing the Paytm, the Razorpay API, how would they know if they're asking for this, this, or this? Okay, for that, we have endpoint. So endpoint is nothing but a URL, okay, which tells what to do. They have one unique URL for every kind of function that they offer. One function is creating this, one function is this function, and so you have to decide where you want to go. Okay, similarly, okay, so so we have taken an example of restaurant out there. Now let us take an example of a food court. Okay, in the food court also, this is true that if you have gone to the top, like the top floor of the malls, there is a food court. Okay, so maybe there is a McDonald's, there is a Pizza Hut, there is a Wendy's, there is maybe some Indian restaurant, and maybe there is Ratnasagar. Okay, so now what will happen is that on the front is actually the waiter who is waiting. Okay, and now you are going ahead. Okay, now if you want to go ahead and have some burgers out there, you'll either go to McDonald's or you will go to Wendy's. Okay, so these are nothing but endpoints. Okay, so how would you go ahead and decide? You know what to build. Okay, you know what data you are looking for. Okay, so you will go to the right person, right? So the person who is accessing the APIs, which is this person, the human, you, they have to know where they want to go. So they should be knowing what the endpoint is. So if I want burger in such a scenario where one system, one unit is giving me so many services, I should be knowing that what service do I want. Okay, so this is known as an endpoint. Any questions so far, anyone? If you have no questions, please write, go ahead in the chat.
So they are the final URL which is going to be hit while we calling the API, right?
Yes. Cool. So endpoint is simple. Okay. And second is the second thing is the request. Okay. So now you know where to go. Okay. Yes. So it's a good question. It's a good question, Preeti, that what is the difference between API and endpoint? Okay, so API is not only an endpoint. Now, in order to make sure, so what is an API? You make a request, you put it request somewhere, and then you get a response. This whole experience is an API. Only the URL is not an API. Okay, so now we are going to talk about that API is actually a combination of three things. One is the endpoint, second is the request, and third is the response. All of these things come together, then only something is going to happen, or you are going to get some data, or you are going to put some data. That is the whole overview of API. API, the endpoint is just one simple structure or one simple component or one component of this API out there. Endpoint is just one component of the API. Rajan, the endpoint where you search or motto get achieved, right? Yes, correct. So what is the resource that, so for example, who is the person that you should ask to? Okay, that should be known by the client. That should be known by someone who is calling the API that yes, if I want this information, I should go to this person. Okay, imagine like rather than a food court example, a better example would be a government office. Okay, so if you are going to someone who is not responsible for that task, they are never going to do it. Okay, they will just point you that maybe go ahead over there. I do not know, or they will not even point you. Okay, so that is a very good example, as in if it is not my responsibilities, I am not going to take it. So that is an example of endpoint. Yes, so now we'll talk about terminology, and we have talked about endpoint. Second point is request. So understand, if you want to get your work done, you have to tell them that what do you need. That is known as request. Your request should contain the data in a structured format, because understand, when we are talking about APIs, there could be so many types of APIs. So APIs are very simple. Two systems talking to each other. They can talk in their own language. They can talk in any language that they want. Okay. But for the standard APIs, okay, we consider a common language. Okay, and this common language is usable across the kind of APIs that you are going to see mostly. Okay, some internal systems talking to each other, they can use any language that they want, but most of the the familiar API that you are going to see, which are documented across the internet, where you will find these principles are followed, where there will be an endpoint, there will be a request, there will be a response. Okay, so talking about request is what data do you give to the API? Okay, what data do you send to the endpoint? So request contains three parts. First is the type, second is the header, third is the payload. Okay, so type is, now there are multiple kinds of instructions that you can give. Okay, this is just like a major kind of instruction that you can give. There could be 20 others as well. Okay, so 4 kind of major instructions that people give, which are like 80% of the cases out there, are post. You can go ahead and ask the other system to add something on your behalf. Okay, so for example, this is your website. Okay, and this is your backend. Okay, a customer has gone ahead, they have purchased something. So the website will tell to the backend API that please go ahead and add this order to your database. Okay, so this is known as post. Post is add a resource. When you go ahead and transfer money from one bank to another, that is also known as post. You add the money out there. Okay, so post is adding a resource. Put is edit a resource. Now you want to go ahead and edit a, for example, you have your profile on LinkedIn. Now you want to edit that profile. So initially when you sign up, you have made a post request. Now when you are editing, you are actually making a put request. You are saying that no, initially my name was this. Why don't you go ahead and edit my name? Okay, then delete a resource. You can always go ahead and ask them to delete a resource. That is also one use case. And then there is a get a resource. Now this is like the most, all the APIs that we have talked about, they are mostly using the get use case, which is you ask them for a particular resource. Show us all of the flights that are available at your airline on this particular day and time. This is a get. So you can do majorly 4 things in API. There are other things that are possible, but I'm only going to give you 4 major things, which is 80% of the use cases. First is post, you can add something. Second is put, you can edit something. Third is delete, you can delete something. Get is you can get a resource. Okay, understand all of these operations that we are doing, it is actually happening on the second system. The first system is us, who is going to give these instructions to the second system. Okay, so now if Uber wants to interact with Google Maps, which of these functions are they going to use? Push, post, put, delete, or get? The use case that we have talked about Uber and Google, which function do you think they are going to use? Everyone in the chat, please. Get. Now, if Zerodha goes ahead and ask SEBI to make a transaction, ask NSE to make a transaction, what will happen? If Zerodha goes ahead and ask Bombay Stock Exchange or NSE to make a transaction, okay, so here we will have a transaction. What will happen? First, they will get the data. They will understand what shares are available. Okay, then the Zerodha customer will go ahead and put a request that I want this share. So now this information will go as post to the NSE. Let me explain you with diagram. Just give me a moment. Buying shares on Zerodha. Okay, so user, they will just go ahead and say, first of all, they will see on their dashboard, they will see, okay, that certain stocks are available. So Zerodha, if they want to show these details to this person, they have to make a get request to National Stock Exchange or anything that they are using. Okay, this person will go ahead and give this the data, and the data would be visible. Now in the second step, this person will say that I want this quantity and I want this share. Okay, so this person will say, this is the quantity I'm willing to take. This is the amount that I'm willing to go ahead and give. And also, this is the stock that I want to purchase. Okay, and then after that, this will be sent as a post request to the NSE. Okay, so NSE will quickly check that whether they can take this post request or not, because understand, when they might have sent this data to Zerodha, it might be a bit late. Maybe if it is, even if it is like 1 second, 2 seconds late, it might be possible that these stocks have changed their prices or they are now out of they are not available for sale right now. Okay, so it will at that period of time check. NSE API will do all of this hard work. It will check whether it is available for sale or not. And then once it goes ahead, it thinks that yes, it could be sold. They will go ahead and put a bid. They will make that purchase happen, and then post will happen. And again, this particular person's detail will again change, and then it will be again visible on Zerodha. So it's a combination of post. It is a combination of get as well. Understand, there would be someone on the parallel who will be selling their shares, who will be selling their share. There, some put request might be there, because now the number of shares that they hold is going to reduce, is going to change. A quick yes or no, everyone, if you are able to understand post, push, get, delete. Post, put, get, and delete. Yes, put will also be there because when the details are changing about a particular person, that would be there. Okay, just understand, guys, that the context of explaining all of you this, understand, I am telling you very high level things. Okay, there are so many details that if I go into depth of it, like, so understand, even in a put request, there are so many get requests that are happening from various kind of APIs. Okay, I'm just trying to make it very high level so that you guys can understand if you are getting it in front of all of this information for the first time. Okay, so this information might not be factually correct. For example, the analogy, you cannot call your granny or your kid as an API, but we are considering it so that you understand how technology works. So keep that in mind always when we are going ahead and doing this session, that factually it might be possible that some information is not correct, as in terminology would be correct, but yes, there could be some more complicated scenarios beyond what we can see right now. That's why it's tricky to make people understand technology, and not a lot of people can do it. So yes, then we have two more things. One is header and second is payload. So now here we have two problems. Okay, so this is person number A. Okay, so how would Zerodha know if this is A only? He's not B, he's not C, because you cannot go ahead and say that A, if you cannot verify if it is A, how you are going to make sure that their information is updated, or how you are going to make sure that their information is saved with you, and these are actually the person who is making the transaction. Okay, so in order to add additional information, okay, additional information such as authentication, that this person is the one who is going ahead and using this or not. Okay, this API, not anyone else is not using it. Okay, so in order to create all of this track record, we have something known as header information. So header information is nothing, but it's some secondary information which an API needs to take care of, which an API takes so that they are assured that yes, this information, the person who is making that asking for that particular information is actually the correct one. Okay, similarly, I'll give you one more example that Uber is using Google Maps. Okay, so now Google Maps API would be used by other people as well. Okay, so for example, Uber is using, and then Swiggy is also using. Okay, the details are similar for everyone. Okay, so everyone can have same kind of endpoints of getting an address and getting the path to reach there. And everyone will make similar kind of like get or post, whatever they are making. They will also make similar kind of request. Okay, so how would Google Map know that this is Uber who is using this or this is Swiggy who is using it? Because they have to charge them accordingly. Okay, so for this, they are going to give some kind of information to Uber that maybe take this key or take this password or take this other kind of information that is unique to you. Okay, and whenever you ask for an API request, whenever you push my API, whenever you request my API, make sure that you are passing it along with every request so that I know you are asking for it, so that I can manage the billing for you. Otherwise, how would I know? Okay, so in order to maintain the secondary information, which is important for authentication, authorization of the service out there, we have some kind of headers. Okay, so header just consists the information about the people who are going ahead and using the information. Okay, there could be other information as well that you can add to the header, but that is subjective. Most of the time you have to remember that authorization and authentication is required for headers. Okay, now the third part is payload. Okay, this is an important part. So now how would you go ahead and send the data to Google? Okay, so when Uber and Google talk to each other, Uber has to tell that give me the distance between X and Y, the latitude and longitude they will give of both the locations, and then they will send it to Google, and then Google will send them a well-made map. Okay, similarly, if we talk about maybe our next example, which is this company Paytm. and the flight company may be AirAsia. Okay, so here also I'm not sure if they are using a third party in between, but yes, this is how it will go. They have to send them the date. They have to send them maybe any kind of preference that the candidate has. For example, if they are looking for any economy seats, they are looking for business class seats or first class seat, they will send this information to AirAsia, and then AirAsia will return the seats. Okay, so understand, in order to make a request, you also might need a payload. Payload is the information that is sent from one system to another system so that other system can understand what this person is asking for. Okay, so even in a food court, if you go to a McDonald's, there also you have to tell them what is like we have 5 kind of burgers or 3 kind of fries, which one do you want? That is actually the payload. The information that you give, the request is completed with a payload. Okay, so your request contains the header, it contains a type, and it also contains the payload. Yes, someone has to ask something. Cool. So payload is nothing but the information that you go ahead and give it to the second person so that yes, date range is a payload. Yes, date range is a payload. Cool. So these are the 3 things that you should understand when we talk about APIs. Okay, there is one more, which is the response. Yes. Now, Preeti, you have to answer this question. Payload can be given in GET or POST. Can someone answer this question for Preeti, which is payload can be given in GET or POST?
It can be given in both.
Any use case?
I mean, whatever information you want to get, you need to first give it to the system, right? And in the vice versa, whatever information they are giving you, you need to have that bucket, right?
So example, I would say, suppose you are searching something in Myntra. Let's say you are searching for trousers there. Okay. So if you want to get some specific color, specific size, so that payload would be get payload, or it may be post. It depends on how they have designed that, and get the information.
Correct. So understand, you
Very
guys
correct.
don't have to bother. Yeah. So understand, on a high level, you don't have to bother about GET or POST right now. Payload is just the information that you send. You can also send it in GET. You can also send in POST. In real language, like in the lower level language out there, GET parameters are easily visible to the user. So if we talk about Google search, okay, if I talk about maybe Myntra, I think, let us take this example. Okay, so if I search for something, maybe dress for maybe this. Okay, so understand, this actually contains all of the structure and all. Okay, here, when the information is easily visible in the endpoint, it is known as GET information. Okay, if it is not, it is in the POST information. But understand, for this high level understanding, you do not have to bother about it whether GET sends the data or not. Okay, the endpoint should know what they want to do. That's it. And if data is available, then it should be able to go. So you should not go ahead and put more intent to whether it is going to be POST or whether it is going to be GET. You can send payload in both. That is possible. Vivek, you have to ask something.
Ankit, just what my understanding is clear. So anything which is to be sent additionally apart from the request parameters in an API request is actually usually put in a JSON or the XML file. Is that the understanding? So that's essentially.
Can you come again, Vivek?
So anything apart from the usual request parameters that is there in the API, the additional information which the API maker would have said that give it to me in the format of JSON or XML in the payload. Is that usually the custom? That's how it's done.
Yes.
For example,
that's usually yeah, that is correct.
Okay, since you don't want the API request essentially to have a lot of parameters, you want to put it in a JSON or XML file, which essentially could be optional or mandatory.
Correct. That is correct. So just to make everyone's understanding clear, that we limit endpoints only to the kind of request that we are making, only to make sure that we are assessing the right kind of resource. Okay, any additional information about that request is going to be contained in the payload, such as give me the price. If we are talking about e-commerce, give me, like, go ahead and take this order. So we are going to mention the customer details. We are going to mention the things that they have bought, their total value out there of the particular goods. That is going to be most made in post. That is going to be carried as a payload to them, to the other system out there. Cool. Any other question from anyone? Cool. So yes. Just to clear the confusion out there, okay. Get is used to fetch information, okay, and post is used to push information, okay. In post, since you need information to push, you will most of the times need a payload. Okay, while in get, since you are only looking for information, okay, some information is just could be visible to you just through an endpoint. Okay, so for example, I tell you that facebook.com/ maybe any particular page. Okay, this will give you all the information about me. Okay, you do not need to send any additional data. This is that additional data that is there. Okay, so this request itself is get, but sometimes you might have to go ahead and give some more additional information, as in maybe also tell me their, maybe what is their date of birth. In get also, you can put some data in the payload. That is also possible. Okay, so payload is possible in both get and post, but majorly is a topic of post. Cool. So now we'll go ahead and talk about the other part. So we have talked about terminology, which is endpoints done, request done. Yes. So now we are going to go ahead and talk about response, how the response arrives. Okay. So in response also, we have header and we have body. Okay. So header contains a very important thing, which is known as status. Status could be of 4 types. One status is 2xx, which is like it is a successful request. Whatever you are trying to do, it is being done. So most of the time, if you make a request, you are going to see, like in the inspect element tool that we are going to understand later, you are going to see that whenever we make a request, in the good cases, it is going to generate a 200 request. It is going to generate a 200 success. Okay, 200 code out there, success code out there. Okay, so status is 200 or 2xx, like anything beyond 202, 203. There is a terminology which you can read, but mostly if it is starting from 2, it is a successful request. Whatever you are trying to do, it is done. So now you can go ahead and start reading the body that we have set. Okay, second is 5xx, which is mostly in these cases, the error is there, but the error is from the server's end. Either server is not able to fulfill your request, they do not have the resources, or they are not able to do your work at this period of time because of any other reason. Okay, the issue is with the server. You go to the restaurant and you ask them that we go ahead and want this particular thing, and you think that and when the restaurant has taken the order and in the backend they find that the chef is absent, or maybe the chef does not have the required material in order to produce it. That is like an example of 5xx error. Okay, so the error is at the backend during the 5xx error, which is 500 error, 500 error, and all. Then we have error that starts from 4, which is mostly you have made a mistake, which is you are accessing a resource which is not there. For example, something is not in the menu, and you are asking for that dish. Now you're not going to get the dish, but the error is yours. So the chef will tell you that the waiter will tell you that it's a 404 error, that I do not know what you're looking for. Whatever you're looking for is not here. Okay, and then there is 3xx. Things have been moved. You go ahead, you talk to them that go ahead, you go to a McDonald's and you find that the resource is not there. Okay, they have shifted their places. So then you will go ahead and find where now McDonald's is located. Okay, so 2, if it starts from 2, it is success. If it starts from 5, it is because of something wrong at the error at the server end. 4, it is an error at the client end, and while 3, it is an error at the resource end. As in like the resource that you're looking for is actually moved. Okay, and now the last part, which is body. Here also, it could be XML, it could be JSON. Don't bother about it. Okay, it is any data that this particular kind of API is going to send you. Right now, the rules that we have used, it is of a particular kind of API, which is known as a REST API. Okay, you can read about it or from the internet, REST. And then the body could be anything. Understand? When the Google Maps is going to go ahead and send you some details in the form of map, it is going to be complicated. Okay, while if a very simple API, it is going to give you weather information about a particular place, that is going to be very simple, only like the degree centigrades or whether it is humid or not. Okay, so body is actually the data that they send in response. Any questions so far from anyone? Cool. So if you have no questions, go ahead and take the screenshot of this particular slide. Okay. And tomorrow we are going to come back and we are going to discuss how we are going to frame these APIs for LinkedIn. So we want to talk about tomorrow we will create the internal APIs of LinkedIn, as in how the create user API would look like, how the created profile UPI will look like, and we'll do this together. So you have to create a screenshot of this and then map it down in the form of this. So what is going to be the endpoint, what is going to be the request, and what is going to be the response.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ankit,
Yes, Shivam.
I have a question. So it is regarding that the first example which you have shown of Uber, Cred, and that travel website, flight website.
Hmm.
Okay. So seeing this credit report, since you have already worked at IND Money. Okay. So do these companies pay every time whenever a credit report is fetched, or how is it?
Yes. Yes. So there are two kinds of credit reports possible. One is soft and one is hard. For hard, you have to pay more. For soft, you have to pay less.
Because I remember before some 5-6 years when these apps were not there. So if you have to get your credit report, you had to pay some 400 to 500 rupees at that time.
Right now, it is, I think, with ICICI, if you want to fetch your report, it is going to ask you for 800 to 1800 rupees.
So
Okay.
SBI last time I checked, I think before some 1 week or so, it was asking some 450 rupees or something.
Yes. With ICICI, I checked last time, I think it was around 1200 rupees with civil. So what they do is what they have done is they have partnered with these kind of institutes, okay, such as CRIF and Experian. I think for IND Money, I'm not sure about the cost, but I think it was somewhere in range of around 50-60 rupees because we have done a bulk deal. So for every user, they have to pay.
So this is something else which I wanted to ask. So if any discrepancy is found there, so where to complain?
To the CRIF, go ahead and send an email to CRIF. On their website, they have everything. Then they are going to verify and do everything.
Okay, because some loan is showing against my name which I haven't taken.
These are the problems we keep on hearing at IND Money. Okay, so what you have to do is IND Money cannot do anything. Okay,
Yeah.
you have to understand where the result is coming from. Okay, you have to go to CRIF and there would be like some kind of service portal that they might have. You are going to go ahead and ask them, and then they might send you or they might not be able to send you as well. That is possible. Then you have to go to your bank. Then bank will understand, bank has all the data available. Then they will tell you why your credit score is bad.
Okay,
And
so
they will
first,
give you all of the information.
so first I should contact bank or CRIF.
Yeah, you should contact both. You should send an email to CRIF, but I have not seen many people who have got reply from them. Some have got. Okay, so they can tell you the issue, and then you should go to bank in order to find the issue. As in, if there is some kind of loan that you have taken. Okay, so you have closed the loan, but they have not reported it to the CRIF or someone out there.
So for me, it is showing some Madhyanchal Gramin Bank. I haven't even heard the name of that bank.
So Ankit,
This is known as identity theft.
yes, Ankit, I think this kind of problem happen when you you take a pay later services from any of the app. So there
Yes.
you don't know from which bank or which financial institute you are borrowing the capital, but you only know that I am using Paytm Pay Later. But it may be possible that at that particular time it is using Grameen Bank as a financial institute to borrow you the money. So that's
Correct. That is correct. That is correct.
So it is like I have never even taken a loan in my life.
So
maybe you
BNPL
have
is a loan.
used any kind of pay later services.
And it is showing some 6 lakhs of loan.
Oh, then what BNPL have you taken, man? then you have to go ahead and find out, because Shivam, what will happen when you'll go ahead and try to take any kind of personal loan, or you'll try to take any kind of home loan, then it is going to, like, you'll suffer a lot of that period of time. So go ahead and you can talk to bank, you can talk to anyone in order to get this out. I think on the internet there are many answers on the internet about the same.
Oh, okay, I will have a look at it.
But
because
take
in
it
the-
seriously, take this seriously. Because credit score is like your social score. Like China
Yeah,
has
all
social
the,
score, we have
all
credit
the
score.
way it was above 800 from past 6-7 years. And now I am seeing it is some 600 something.
Yeah, that 6 lakh has made it 800 to 600. Yes,
Okay,
Sitara, you have something to ask?
thanks for the info.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ankit. So I was discussing something about the APIs with my developers. They were like, is there something known as DTO in this?
What thing?
DTO.
DTO. Let us find out what is DTO. Like, I have not heard of this term.
I mean, these people were going on telling and discussing about the same. I mean, I'm not pretty
API
sure.
DTO naming. Data transfer objects. I'm not sure about these. Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
then
you read
it
about
might
these
be
and
of
yeah,
detail,
it would be
right?
it would be of something very specific. Yeah.
Not for us, right?
Okay, so I cannot tell you. Okay, so understand, technology that I've told you is actually an overview. Okay, you should go ahead and understand your system, what is important for you. For example, that if someone is going ahead and they are working at maybe a simple e-commerce website, such as Flipkart or something, maybe they don't have to take care, even they don't have to learn much about APIs. But if you're working for someone such as IND Money, where APIs are actually the part of your job, critical to the product, then you should go into the depth of API. Then you should understand all of these things such as D2 and all as well. So it depends from use case to use case, concept to concept, and company to company.
That's okay. Got it.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Harsha, you want to ask something?
Yes, Ankit. So with regards to these discrepancies in API, so is it the product manager's responsibility to track them, or
Yes.
okay?
Yes, correct. So understand what happens is that it could
And
be
I also
because of
keep
various
hearing
ways.
about API metrics. So is it the same? Do
Yeah.
product
So
managers
yeah. So
track API
API. Yeah. So
metrics?
understand So what happens is that if your if your main service is APIs, or if you are a product manager who is working on APIs, then the game changes a bit. Okay. First of all, you have to go in much deep and much depth, and then you have to make sure that you are maintaining some kind of metrics. That yes, this should be the latency of my API. This should be the failure rate of my API. And if failures are occurring, you should have the log of it so that you understand what is happening, what is not happening. So you are then responsible for making sure that the APIs function well, it is giving the results to the company. And for that, you have to go into the details. So that's a different world altogether. Here, if we talk about a user-centric product, we talk about daily active users, monthly active users, signups that are happening, what is the retention, what is the money. While if you talk about API, you talk about latency, the metrics changes altogether. Cool. So I think we are done. So thank you everyone. Bye. Take care. We'll see together to each other tomorrow at the same time, where we'll talk about these examples that I have given you about LinkedIn. Okay. So if you can do, please go ahead and do some kind of homework. Okay. So thank you everyone. Bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.